Welcome to another series of the bariatric cooking classes. Today we're going to be making a vegetarian dish called Thai tofu quinoa bowl. So the base is going to be quinoa, the protein is going to be tofu, and then it's going to be topped with some awesome toppings that we're going to talk about in a minute. So here are the ingredients. You need 1 pack of extra firm tofu. This tofu I wrapped up in a clean cloth and I put a lot of weight on it. I put a couple of these glass bowls and a book to press it down so that the tofu releases the moisture and then the cloth will absorb that moisture. You want to get as much of the moisture out of the tofu because we want to be able to crisp it up a little bit in the oven. I also have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and a tablespoon of sesame oil here. This is where we're going to marinate the tofu in. I have 1 cup of uncooked red quinoa, and I also have 1.5 cups of vegetable broth where we're going to cook the quinoa in. Here some of the toppings are going to be slivered almonds, which we're going to toast in a minute, some shredded carrots, some sliced scallions, some finely minced cilantro. And for the sauce, we have 1 tablespoon of creamy peanut butter, half a tablespoon of sriracha sauce. And if this is too spicy, you can do about half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. We also have 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, 3 tablespoons of coconut milk, half a tablespoon of brown sugar, 1 garlic clove minced, half of a lime juice, and this also calls for some fresh ginger. I did not have fresh ginger with me, so I have some dried ginger. It called for a teaspoon of fresh ginger, so I'm only going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of the dried ginger. Okay, so now that the tofu has released all its moisture, I let it sit with that weight for about 30 minutes to get that moisture out. You could even do it the day before, so that way you don't have to make this step on the day that you're cooking. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop this tofu in squares. So I'm gonna take this square and I'm gonna cut it first in half as evenly as possible. And then in slices. And that's how you make the chunks. These are not perfect chunks, but that's okay. You can make them smaller too. These chunks I just made are a little bit big. You can make them smaller. And we're just gonna toss the tofu on the marinade of the soy sauce, which is reduced sodium soy sauce. I forgot to mention that. And the sesame oil. This is now that we took out the moisture of the tofu out with the rag, it's going to be able to absorb that marinade. So that's why also the step of removing the moisture from the tofu is important. Now that the tofu is well coated on the marinade, I'm going to lay it on a sheet pan, which I put some foil paper on. I'm just going to spread this out evenly. And try to space them apart as best as I can. I preheated the oven to 350 degrees and it's hot and ready to go. This is going to cook in the oven for about 40 minutes and I'm going to check it every 10 minutes just to flip them around so that the tofu crisps up in all the sides. Once you've got the tofu marinated and inside the oven, it's time to make the quinoa. I've got the quinoa here. And I have this pot, which I heated up to about medium-high heat. I may lower it a little bit. It is pretty hot. What I want to do is toast the quinoa a little bit before adding the moisture to it. And the red quinoa, because it's red, you won't be able to see it, the color change, but you'll be able to smell it and you can tell that it's toasting. And you're going to be able to hear it as well. It does a little pop. I am going to bring it down to a little bit less than medium because I can tell it's popping pretty quickly. And I'm going to leave it here for about 5 minutes, tossing as much as I can. Now that the quinoa has been toasting for about 5 minutes, I'm going to add the vegetable broth. I'm going to bring this up to a simmer, cover it, and let it cook for about 15 minutes or until all the moisture is absorbed. That's the timer to flip the tofu, which I'm going to do in just a second. Ten minutes have passed, so I'm going to flip the tofu real quick, just so that it cooks evenly on each side. Careful with the oven, it's really hot. It smells really good. I'm just gonna give it, I'm gonna grab something that's more flat, easier to just turn each one. There we go. Once it's flipped, now we put the pan back in the oven for another 10 minutes until we complete 40 minutes. Every 10 minutes, you want to flip the tofu. While the tofu is in the oven, now I'm going to toast the almonds. The recipe calls for half a cup of almonds. I have a little bit more here, but that's okay because any leftover toasted almonds I use for other recipes. So essentially what I have is this on low heat, medium-low heat. And I'm just going to toss it, flip it every certain amount of minutes just to get the almonds as toasted nicely. But you have to be really careful because if you're not keeping an eye on your almond, it's really easy for this to burn. So you definitely want to do this in a time where you can be standing right next to it so you don't burn it. Okay, now that you can see that the almonds have a little bit of a tan color to them, I turned off the heat and these are done. Now that the tofu has been in for another 10 minutes, I'm going to flip it again. These are looking really nice. And again, if you're not able to crisp up your tofu, it was probably because you weren't able to take enough of the moisture out from the tofu. All right, I think these need just an additional 10 minutes and then they're ready to serve. Now we're going to make the sauce for the bowl. We're just going to mix all the ingredients together. You just have to make sure that the peanut butter is soft. So if you keep your peanut butter in the fridge, then just put it in the microwave for a couple of seconds to get it soft so that it mixes well with the rest of the ingredients. Okay, I think I'm gonna use a whisk because this is almost well mixed in, but not fully. So I'm gonna use a whisk so that I can break up the coconut milk better and get everything well incorporated. All right, so now all of the ingredients for the bowl are ready. I'm just gonna assemble everything. Now that all the components are ready, it's time to plate and taste it. I'm super excited. So first we put some of the quinoa in the bottom. Then the tofu. About 3 ounces of tofu. Then I'm going to add the almonds. This gives it a nice crunch factor. Carrots. Scallions or green onions. Gives it color. Very nice flavor as well. Cilantro. And of course the toppings are to taste. So if you want less scallions, less cilantro, that's completely up to you. I like these herbs a lot. And then last but not least, the sauce. And we're just gonna drizzle that over. And that's it. Here you've got yourself a wonderful homemade Thai quinoa bowl. I hope you enjoy it.